with that being said, we're going to get started. Thomas Picket, he's a longtime regular at Liberty on the Rocks. He's watched more movies than anyone else in this room. People in conspiracies. Also, he's got an intro he's doing. So please give it up for Thomas Picket.
Hello. Let's there be light. There we go. All right. Thank you for everybody joining the Secret Society of Striped Socks. I see no one wore striped socks. Like there, that's all right. Every day. Yes. This is something special. It's intimate. Like there, and everybody had the secret knock getting in, which is just, well, the door was already open. So today we're going to talk secret societies. And I'm going to start with, wait a minute, why is it not? Oh. Let's see here. They're a bit of a scam. Like I'm going to take this off because I'm going to overheat. So ruin the mood a little bit. But yeah, we want to think of secret societies. We have this built up in our brain, like we watch Eyes Wide Shut or Parallax View, or, we must think that there's these people against us that are conspiring together. And there is, but not the way we think it is. And then it's more like this. It's Sean Puffy Comb parties. It's being in a fraternity. It's Oprah. Like Oprah has some of the worst friends. Like, just as a side, all the people that she's friends with, like, are all like in jail or, the darkness or whatever. The Secret, the million, what was it? The author that lied was a million little shard pieces. I can't remember. That's in the upper right-hand corner. And then she's always like, I didn't know and stuff like that. I just wanted more of a list of the people that she does know that are not like in jail or being prosecuted or whatever. What's that? Oh, yeah. God, that would have been another one been up there. But, like there, so it's just, I think this is kind of more, it's like, again, these relationships and everything, breaking that down. So like there. So I think there is different kinds of secret societies that we can, I'm going to go and describe these and we'll get in further detail, but, control a small group of elites like nobles, or, like they're also corrupting a group that gained blackmail over there. That's more of the Epstein, which, the last talk was Epstein. So I'm not going to go too much into them, but you'll see how like some of this stuff applies. And then it's like an ideological group that's cohesive that wants to replace the existing systems. These are like revolutions. I have another, some other good examples of that as well. But we'll get in. So I'm going to get like a little bit broad. Like it's going to be a little esoteric, but I think we need to understand these things. How secret societies work. It's like I was hearing people's talk where they're so frustrated. Like, why are things this way and people voting this way? It's like, it makes sense to them, what they're trying to accomplish. And it's like, people here just want simple things where it's, we're in free markets. Like, let's break down these walls, but there's reasons why this stuff is there that clouds our minds. So the first topic I'm going to talk about is Plato's cave, allegory of the cave. Show of hands, how many people know, okay, wow, this is a fundamental understanding of the universe that's going to start, is the idea of, I'm going to call it Plato's cave, but it's like, it's officially named Allegory of the Cave. And it was in Plato's Republic. And he kind of was more talking about like ignorance, like literature or whatever, that people kind of create this cave of themselves, but it applies to so much of other things in our life. So the story goes that there's chained, and you can see it a little bit at the bottom, there's chained prisoners that they can't move, and they're forced to look at the wall of the cave, and all they see is shadows. And that's what their universe is. That's all they've ever known. And at some point, one of the prisoners breaks his chains. He's able to escape and go out of the cave. And he sees what the universe is. And he's like, oh my God, we've been fooled all our lives. I got to go back into the cave and tell them. And he's like, look, guys, this isn't the real universe. These are just shadows on the wall. And they go away, get rid, like, we don't want to hear it, there. And it's like dumbfounding. It's like, oh my God, if you guys would just get up and see what the universe is, and they just can't do it. And so this is what, like, I guess I just described that there, but there's all these different kinds of caves. I just put one as like just by class. Don't ever underestimate class. Like, it all kind of goes down to, we think about racism or parties or intelligent or whatever. You've got to look at like under with class. That is something like there, and there's cues. There's a good person I found on Instagram. It's Sanibel.Inc., I think is her name. She wrote a book about class. She's actually Asian, and she grew up in like probably upper middle class, upper class, like Nantucket and like New York and things like that. And she just there's just all these signs of like things, how you deal with class. And that's, that's probably all I'm going to say about that. But it's just, don't ever estimate it. Like think about it. It's like, is this person believe that they're higher class than me? Are they really higher class? Like, connections of things like, am I going to be allowed to in that golf club, golf club or whatever? So, there. So the next story is that, as part of this, is the Emperor's New Clothes. Now, probably most people have heard this, and it's more like the meaning of the story is like, oh, this dumb emperor doesn't realize he's naked and goes to this, this festival, and, some kid laughs at him and everybody laughs and stuff. And that's part of the story. But what other thing that clouds our minds is this, that it's the lack of common knowledge. I know that you know that you know that I know. And explaining this, and it's what it applies to the emperor has no clothes, is that, like, I know he's naked. He knows he's naked. I know that he knows that I know he's naked. So but you need somebody, and again, this goes back to class. It's typically a higher class that are keeping this lack of knowledge. You need somebody to like basically say, hey, we all know this. But it gets really complex and kind of hard sometimes. And it's kind of funny. I was like, there's a few things where I've been like researching. It's just stuff I found at the last moment where Steve Pinker actually writes a book about this. It's called Common Knowledge. Haven't read it, but I'm sure it's good, and I'll look at it at some point as well. So that is another part. The next part is game theory. Like, this is another big one that's hard for us. We're autistic. We just want simple things. And it's just that, like, we think we're playing a certain game, like politics, or like complaining. It's like, oh, there's this party system, and we go to people and, try to get their votes and convince them. And it's like, it's not that. It's like where these parties have built Plato caves in everybody's mind. And I cannot emphasize enough, it is built. Like, we are pieces of, like little kind of computers. And we run on this software. And these people get the software in their heads that like and they just can't break it. And like, this is where, like, this is the game theory. Let's see, can I read it here? Like, an example of just like how we work is the prisoner's dilemma is that like two people commit a crime, they get arrested, and it is, if they shut up, they don't know anything, like the cops don't know anything, and they'll both get out. But if one of them breaks, like, admits to the crime, they'll get a lesser sentence, but the other guy will get more sentence. And actually, by game theory, it makes sense to actually, like tell on your other place. But because it's like this matrix or whatever shows that like you have a higher probability of having less crimes. So it's like, but again, it's that game, like the game itself. It's like, oh, I thought I was just robbing a bank. But now you have to play this game to kind of get out of it. So like there's so many situations that we go into, and again, like I think work's a perfect example. Like I actually had a very political workplace, the last place I worked. And I just like, I get a job, I'm going to make things, I'm going to do, that's the point. Like I'm going there to make these things and do it. And I kind of feel like, I kind of realize that now, and it's been probably the whole life is this, and I just have never played the game. Most people at a job, like try not to get fired. Like that's the game they're playing. Sure, I'll look busy, I'll do like what I at least do, or like, what it wants, but it's like, they have nothing in their mind where they're like, I'm trying to make something good. Like there where it's like, and it's also like, it makes sense too, like even in a job or, like all places, like who are the power brokers? What do I have to go look good? Like, what is my boss like? What do you want to be liked by everybody? Like that's, forget it. Like I'm a software engineer, that software engineering may not have anything to do with it. Like I may just want to like, they're like smile to people. Like they're like, oh, I heard your mom was going through something, like make connections. Like that may be the actual game at a workplace, not actually the work. So another tool that secret societies use to control us is drugs. And it's, like once you get into this, where there's like a lot of societies where, or cults or whatever, that they're probably drugging people. Like you could be, charismatic and all this other stuff, which all helps, but in just reality is that like, they're probably drugging people like there. So that, and this drugs that, who knows what it could be. It's like make you feel spiritually aware, can make you feel like easier to control. There's a power addiction. So another part of this, I thought this was going to take a long while, but is narcissism. We all have levels of narcissism. And that is like a key thing that people can feed on to get us to do things and cloud our minds. And so like it's a doorway to the mind where sometimes I actually have this on my email as my, as my PS is there's too much narcissism today. Why can't people think about me? But it's something like the secret societies feed on that. And I guess I'm talking about, I call this the scanning matrix. Like we're definitely talking about secret societies, but there's definitely all these things that are related that their formula changes a little bit. Like how they connect to you is, I should have brought my glasses, that it's like secret societies, gurus, cults, motivation speaking. Like has everybody heard of Jim Rohn? Like I guess he's this really famous speaker. God, everything that comes out of his mouth is crap. Like it makes you feel good, and it's like maybe a step zero, but it's this kind of like make you feel good, and it's like, okay, you're done. It's like that's nothing. Like you got to have like tactical plans how to defeat your enemy and stuff. Like I was kind of imagining listening to this, like think of like Tim Robbins or like any like motivational speaker. Imagine Patton saying that, and that's all he did, and it's like now go kill Germans. Like there's no like. It makes no sense, but it feeds on that narcissism. It programs something in your brain. It just triggers it. Multi-level marketing. There's think tanks, but for obvious reasons, we're not going to go too deep in that. Nonprofits, mega churches, religion, faith healers. I think podcasters. Like I could have done a whole speech on a Diary of a CEO. Like he just hits everything. He does the snake oil. He has like always. Like he gives some passionate speech about like this new thing that he found. Like, was it NADS now? Is that the new thing? Like AG1 green is out and now it's NDS or whatever. Like, have you looked at, okay. Yeah, there's always some new snake oil. It's like, oh, just this powder. Like I'm getting tons of mushroom ads on my social media. Like where it's like, oh, just a scoop of this in your coffee per day. It's going to make you feel all great or whatever. And it's like, no, it's not. It's just crap. But it feeds on that, your brain. Like, I'm special. This thing's going to make me better. This, I'm valuable. Like, I need this special ingredients in I've seen some people that, it's like, oh God, I take the mushrooms. Like, am I okay? Like, you're probably fine. It just doesn't do anything. Placebo is a great thing too. Like, so like there, and like other stuff where I think it's like even close is like startups, lobbyists, magician. Like a magician is like this really think where you know this guy doesn't have magic, but you kind of feel it does, and you're kind of amazed, but you know, like kind of really think about that, like how that plays into your brain. So the grifters builds this world inside your head. They build Plato's cave in your head. Like you don't understand this, like how like certain things, like once you realize this, like how much your thoughts and things are actually shaped from the people around you. Like again, it's the question, do we have free will? Maybe we do, but it's all clouded and formed by other things around, like that it like tell us or tell us how to think or how to look at stuff. And again, it's very like, it was like when humans started, it was just like us in a field and like looking up in the sky, and people didn't understand what they were seeing or whatever. But boy, there's somebody in the group that it's like, oh yeah, it was this God, and oh, he talked to me and puts me in charge. It's either there. I mean, there's probably a little bit more to it, but it is you don't understand, like, unless you see it, that how much like gets between you and understanding the universe. And like that's how like it's once like it just like once I saw it, I'm just like, oh my God. Like the whole humanity has been throughout history has been this, where people are trying to interact with the universe, but then there's somebody that gets in and changes our perception of it. And it's like this, that it's religion or it's tech, somebody popular and stuff that, I don't know if that's too small. That's actually a statue of George Washington. Like it's so like, even like our George Washington, I can even kind of go off a little bit where like what we kind of know of George Washington is what other people wanted us to know about George Washington. Like George Washington never wrote a book, or I know there's a lot of letters and things, but like even the statue was created much later, and it has all this like symbolism and things, and like he wasn't into that, kind of thing. So again, it's like, again, you just don't, when you look up at the sky, somebody that's religious, maybe it's like, oh, this is God's work or things, or, if you're an atheist, it's like, oh, I understand the process is, there to do it. But again, there's always people, and then like Elon Musk is, so it's like, oh, I can put a whole bunch of satellites up there. And it's not like, it's not, but again, like you kind of think your thought, if you think about thinking, it's like, oh, I'm thinking about this, but why am I thinking about this way? And once you start realizing that in your own brain, then you realize like, oh, this is what things have done to me. Like you may be conservative and look at certain things where like, oh, I believe this on this issue because they told me that, like there. Like I always find this a good example was the abortion, that typically, like the leftist point of view is like, oh, we're pro-choice, that, it's their body and they have the right. And the conservatives is like, like, oh, we believe this life's important and this is killing this life. But you can actually switch that argument on their beliefs that it could be anything. So like the left believes in prenatal care, and they could say like, hey, we believe even this before the baby's born, that like you can't, we're going to extend that. While the right, it could argue it's like, oh, you need to get abortions if you can't afford them. Like there, you could totally switch the argument, but you believe what they did because that's what they told you to believe. And you never kind of analyze it, where, you may look at it pros and cons, but I'm more like analyzing it's like what they told you and what they want you to think and what they want in your brain. So another part of this is don't underestimate groups with people with the same issues and motivations. It's like when we flock together, it may be a vulnerability. Like the one I found a lot, the Mormons, I could do another whole speech on the Mormons. Mormons are like fascinating. Like, I don't know if like anybody, probably have heard the name Joseph Smith. He's the one that started Mormonism, but they never kind of talk like, oh, how did he die? Or what, because he was supposed to be this prophet, this great prophet. Well, it turns out he was in jail because he burned down this newspaper, and people in the town got mad at him, basically pulled him out of jail and killed him. Like they don't tell you that, like there, but it's just, And the Matrix, I forgot to go back to it, is the motivation. Most people start these groups and stuff so they can have sex with a lot of women. I really think, like, it's kind of kidding, but it's just like, it always seems to evolve that. If you start a cult or a secret society, it always seems to evolve to like, hey, you know, like, I'm important, you know, kind of thing. So, but like, going back to Mormons, so there's kind of this joke, like Mormons, like the way, again, how they've been perceived to how to view the universe is they're very susceptible to MLMs. Like a joke is like MLM really stands for, you know, not multi-level marketing, but Mormons losing money. And people know this, and it's like very fascinating whether these people are actually Mormons or infiltrate the communities and act like Mormons to get in and gain their trust. And it's always like this lip balm or this, you know, new diet thing or what. It's so funny, like, again, like how vain the Mormons are too. Like, I think it is the #1 state for plastic surgery as well. Like there, but it's this, like, again, it's like the byproduct of the thing that they put in their cave. Like, you know, I'm supposed to be this good trad wife. I need to look bad. I need to have the biggest boobs on the block. You know, I need to have these full lips. I need, you know, why I'm, you know, waiting for my, you know, cooking for my husband to come home. But it also too, like actors, like Brandon and I talk a lot about like NXIVM, where it first started as an MMLM, but then evolved into this cult, and you know there and like again, like wasn't the cult leader having like sex with all the people? Yeah, like again, you know, it's like, oh hey everybody, but it's like again, like also too, like actors have to be some of the most biggest narcissists, you know, like there, it's like, you know, these guys that want to shape, you know, these grifters to come in, it's like, whoop, whoop, you know, like there. Also on that Matrix, I should have talked about it a little bit too, is that a lot with these grifts is like, am I going to grift rich people or poor people? Like there where poor people, they may be easier, but I need a lot of them to make a lot of money. Rich people may be harder to access, but I only have to grift a few of them, you know, hence the secret society. Like once you kind of like compare secret societies to cults, it's like, oh, the only difference I think is, am I grifting rich people or am I grifting poor people? Like they're so like there where, but again, it's all these, like, again, it's just the formula, or you can almost think of it as like a piece of software. Like I just have to change it. Like, oh, this is who I'm targeting, like these things where I've got to read. I know there's people that know this much more than I. That's the other thing where I would just like really get into the psychology, and I'm like, well, shit, I should just find a psychology book and like there and that. I'm sure people have talked about it more. Yeah, and there was the other, like I found another book about game theory as well, where that kind of goes into a lot of it, but I didn't have time to read it. So I'm going to talk about some examples that I think these are kind of the general kind of idea how kind of secret societies work. Or they're in applying what we've just learned and kind of gone through this software, this Plato's Cave, this Emperor Has New Clothes, the drugs, everything. So I'll read this, and it's the event is called the Parliament of 1327. The Parliament of 1327, which sat at Palace of Westminster between 7th of January and March 9th, 1327, was an instrumental in transfer. Oh, this is really boring. So basically, this king got overthrown by his nobles. And it's like the Wikipedia doesn't, you know, they talk about these events. All this is pretty British, means pretty boring. Like but you have to kind of, I think, and I don't know if it's ever written anywhere. So basically, Edward II got overthrown by his queen. She hated him, and she was like basically wanted her son to become king. But it's like she had to deal with the nobles to get them on board, and they all conspired together to get rid of the king. And it's like, wow, like at this time, it's like you had to find out like who's on your side. You had to, you know, make sure that when you sent messages, they were cryptic or like, you know, they couldn't break. They're, you know, like they had to find like all these secret ways to communicate in there and line everything up. And basically, and also too, this was kind of interesting too, like about power where, I mean, even at this time where the king, like, you know, there was nothing officially saying like he was appointed by God or whatever, but everybody thought he was special. Like there, it's like, this is a sanctimonious person. Like, can we just tell him that he's not king anymore? Like they really had a debate about that. And that's something important to kind of think about when these cult leaders or these secret societies or whatever, magicians or whatever was on the list, that there's this aura behind them. like where it's like, I can't challenge the leader. Like they're important and stuff, but they've made them important in your mind. There's nothing special about this person. Like you even think about it too, like, politicians, I'm sure like, like here's all these politicians that are doing all these horrible things and stuff, but I'm sure everybody that goes to their office is like, sir, and bowing their head. And, while like Trump is like crapping in his diaper and stuff, like, oh my God, I'm meeting the president, like and it's like, there's nothing special about that person, but there's been a program in your brain that you think this person is special. Like we even see this too, like you ever be in a courtroom, like the judge is always on a higher thing. Like there's something special about that. They have it even a special outfit. Like sometimes like if you think about it too, like there's people that have tall hats. Like I got to be taller than everybody else. There's all these like visual things that they do to fool your mind to think that there's something special, and they're not. So anyway, the part of the Edward II got overthrown, and I guess his kid got in there. So I find this one very fascinating. So has anybody heard of the Knights of the Golden Circle? Okay, great. So the Knights of the Golden Circle was a secret society founded in 1854 by American George W.L. Bickley. Its objective was initially to expand the United States into Latin America, adding slave states to ensure the permanent continuance of slavery. This later became a plan for the southern states to secede and then add Latin American territory. The Golden Circle was a circle of 16 degrees of radius, about 2,400 miles, centered on Havana, and covering territories with climate and suitable for large-scale plantations of agriculture. It would have consisted of the southern United States, Mexico, which was divided into 25 slave states, Central America, Cuba, Haiti, Dominican, like that area. But it's like, like John Wilkes Booth was a member. Like there were senators, there was all these things that they were all like getting set up. It's like, once we secede, then we're going to put our forces and everything and attack these areas and form this new empire, I guess you could say. But obviously it didn't go that way. Like they weren't able to secede. But, so it's like, it's kind of like what ifs, kind of things that's kind of one of my what ifs of history, if they were allowed to secede, because like how would it affect future events? But like they did all the things, again, like the stuff I was talking about, secret ways to, send messages and communicate and gather members and, rituals and all this stuff. It's like, it just didn't work out, like where they did, that's what like we're going to kind of go into and kind of talk about this a lot, is timing. Like, again, there's people all throughout history. I went through hundreds of all these secret societies, like stuff I've never even heard of. They happen all the time, but they fail almost all the time because it's just not, the timing's correct. Or there's things too, like Mormonism is kind of fascinating because it's like they had this flawed, charismatic leader that got like the thing started, but then they had Brigham Young after him that kind of, he was still into polygamy too, but he was able to kind of create the bureaucracy and or the orthodox of the situation, and that's probably the reason why that Mormon exists today is because of him. Because again, like there's another one called Theosophily, I think it's Theosophical, where there's still like little places today, like in India and stuff, but it was like this wide range of this cult or society or whatever, but it just faded. Like once their leader died, it just faded out. Another one's like the Shaker or the Shakers. So there was the Quakers, which they had these big parties and they all could feel the Holy Spirit inside of them. But they decided to hey, maybe this is a little weird for us to quake all this time. But then the Shakers had this charismatic leader named Mother Ann Lee. It's like, no, we're gonna keep doing it and call ourselves the Shakers. But again, there was nobody after her that kind of really things, and it's kind of slowly died out. So another society, is the American Revolution. So I probably have rewritten this speech about 5 to 7 times because I would just find new information and go oh, this changes my perspective on all this stuff that I've got to rethink about it. So it's like we've always been told once you start going into secret society of the American, it's it's the Freemasons. They all had, George Washington was a Freemason. It's only 9 of the 56 people that signed the Declaration of Independence was Freemasons. And also too, that the lodges and the Freemason lodges in the colonies was also done by, the British also attended them. So how could this society communicate and stuff when your enemy's right there? So and it's not, I'm sure it's written somewhere, but it's, like that they did probably have a secret society that we're unaware of that communicated. Another interesting thing, which is kind of important, is there was this very anti-Catholic in the American Revolution. And that kind of stuff kind of changed, and I kind of wonder if there's reasons why. But there was only one Catholic that signed the Declaration, and I can't remember his name, and he was really rich. Like in our dollars, is like 375 million. Charlton, I should have wrote down the name. But anyway, all right, we're going to get to something. Sorry about that. I don't know when we clicked. Okay, we're going to skip there. And all right. Drugs, narcissism. Yeah, so like the scanning matrix, like what they promise, but actually what they deliver. And like, again, all these groups, they'll promise all this stuff. And maybe some of the group members will get some of it, but it's mostly designed to help them. It's like the, multi-level marketing's that is the, okay. This is symbols. So this is another thing. I think this is big. I think this is so overlooked. So these are the designs of the $1. And we kind of go through, they make sense. Like, oh, okay, there's somebody of the time. There's a graphic design on the back that says 1. Then actually they were like, maybe to show value or whatever. It's like, oh, there's Martha Washington. We all like, George Washington and Martha Washington. But then Martha Washington, they go to a design where they kind of switch from Martha to George, which is kind of fascinating, which I wonder if they were trying to, again, put some of your minds, like, you love George Washington, right? This is important. He's important, so this is important. It may have been something like that. But then the final design is, the classic thing that every conspirator loves to look at. It's like the Eye of Providence on a pyramid. But, again, the thing that's always told to us, it's like, oh, that's Freemasons. Like, that's a symbol. It's like, it's not. It's a Catholic symbol. And there was a lot of stuff happening with Catholicism at this time. Lots of Irish, Italians and stuff. And actually a lot of FDR's cabinet were Catholic. And it's like, wow, that's a very interesting thing to put on the money, this super important thing, that this very important symbol of Catholicism is on the money. So just putting that there, that, again, me putting something in your brains. Like there, but symbols can also get co-opted. So it's like, don't go down like, oh, this had to be. Then got to argue these things that, as I'm talking about. So the Eye of Providence, actually, a lot of people, knew it was Catholic or Freemasons or whatever, but it kind of a symbol to the occult because somebody wrote a book in the 70s, and that's when people changed their minds. It was this very popular book series. So the first one I think I put is, Illuminatus, and then like that has all the conspiracy stuff with the Freemason, all that, like that maybe a book again started programming your brain incorrectly or made you look at it a certain way. And so I don't know if I go teach it, but it's another big thing is that things start from culture. Like there's a lot of people in charge where it's like, oh, I'll make a law or do these things, but it kind of doesn't work. You got to have that culture, like there where, like that's where the programming is. Like there where, like again, like pop stars and stuff, where it's like, Taylor Swift, her music isn't that good, but it's like people that get programmed. Like, oh, people think it's good. Okay, it's all right. It's like there's nothing memorable. And also there's this whole other thing that our parents are kind of connected. So like again, you kind of find this like a lot when you find somebody that like comes out of nowhere and stuff, it's like, go look at their parents, go look at their things and their connections where it's like, oh, that's interesting. Like Erica's like father. It's like, oh, he's a weapons dealer, like kind of stuff, like kind of stuff. It's like, that's a weird connection. All right. Oh, wow. I remember like there. So like I said, there's a lot of stuff where it's not what our brain thinks that secret societies are. That I do think there's dark forces at work that but we have to, like, again, you can spiral out of control where you can, like, okay, this is a good example of this, is like the Roswell incident. Like, I'm sure everybody here believes it's like, oh, this was aliens, this was this crashed ship, and then our US government retrieved it and built super weapons and all this, like, again, it's like X-Files and all this other stuff and things. And like, I'm a weirdo in this, that I actually don't think aliens have ever visited the US or like the world, that it's like, it probably was just a secret plane that they retrieved and made up some story. Like, that's the most, it also, I mean, I would say their official story is also plausible, but it is kind of bad where it was like, oh, it's just a weather balloon. It's like, but there's people that have talked about like, no, I picked up, debris and stuff like that. It's also, if you think about the alien angle too, where, space is vast. Like, these people would fly through the universe and all these things, avoided asteroids and navigated to the Earth, but they just can't park their UFO and then crash in the desert. It's like, is that what you really think like happened? So it's some of the stuff where, like, again, you want to think about these things, think about things and stuff there too, but stop yourself, like, oh, is this the most probable? Is this like the only thing? Like, kind of think about it. Like, in the another good example of like people have gone crazy, like flat earthers is a good example where, like, it's like, it's hard, I first thought they were trolls, but like after watching a documentary of them where it's like, oh no, they think they're the keepers of the secret knowledge. Like, I'm important. It's feeding on that narcissism. I'm important. I know the truth and stuff. But and it's weird. Like, I was just watching a debate where like they were saying like, oh, a flight from Chile to Australia doesn't exist. There's no way that they could fly. And it's like, there was like, you can check this, you can book flights. It's like, yeah, they may let you book it, but that like flight's going to get canceled, kind of things where, or it's like stuff too, where it's like, if this was that important and prove it or whatever, it's like, why don't you try to get on that flight? And they're just like, oh, I know, like kind of stuff where like you do, like, again, you don't want to get to that point where, also too, like, was it David Icke? Like, pronounced like he's just like everything, reptilians and all this other stuff that, there was another, a great documentary of just like how crazy stuff is Above Majestic, which was made by David Wilcox, which unfortunately just committed suicide in the last few months. People are linking again. It's like, oh, it's another scientist that like there, but it's like he did put up a video where he said he was struggling with things and stuff where, it's unfortunately that's probably what happened. But it's like that documentary is so crazy. It just weaves every conspiracy together and puts it all in this one big story. And they, did some animations and stuff like that. It's great. So anyway, so I am going to speculate. I think there is some big things that we need to kind of talk about. And it's like, let's see if it kind of goes from there. I was going to title this like transhumanism, but like there's just all this stuff around Peter Thiel. Now, the thing we also have to kind of think about too, and this is something like the powers that be. We see this at like smaller levels, like the Overton window, where somebody like puts in place, like, this is the only things that we can talk about. Anything other, like out of this area of discussion, we can't, like, this is too weird. This isn't part of this debate. But it's like, I think the powers that be do that a lot of things with our political parties, with their, that, again, it's designed like, oh, whoever wins, we benefit from it. It doesn't, I don't know if it has to be a vast conspiracy, like say a billionaire could be, funding both of them. And it's just like, whoever wins, they're going to do what I want to do. And like, that's that. Or, like, again, going to like the Epstein stuff, it's like, listen, we're going to compromise whoever wins. So what is it? It is amazing. Like sometimes like a lot of people that like win elections, it's like, oh, finally something's going to happen. And then doesn't, like this is another thing where you start to see things that, listen, it's like, I don't know exactly what's going on, but I know, by probabilities and things that stuff do, like there where, it's like, oh, that person got compromised. Like, I'm a basketball fan in NBA where there's just like all these weird things with the drafts and stuff. It's like, okay, if this happened once, I can understand, but it's like about 3 times or, 4, like, that it's just like the latest one where one of the top 5 players in the world, Luka Doncic, was suddenly traded to the Lakers. And the GM of the Mavs, where he was traded from, was like, yeah, he's this great player, but defense wins championships, and he just wasn't a defensive player. Yet, like, yeah, great if he's really not that bad of a defensive player, but it's just like, this is like teams wait 20, 40 years to find, some player like this, and you just trade him. And they traded for somebody that was injured all the time. Hence, he played like 5 games for the Mavs and got injured and eventually traded. And that general manager eventually got fired. But the funny part, again, where the conspiracy, like, again, I don't believe that story. I think he was traded because they wanted the Lakers to be a good team. Like where there were some other conspiracies there, but I think it was just that, where it's like LA is such a huge market, and like for them to have that player in that market is just so much more money. But again, so the Mavs had like a 1% chance of getting the number 1 pick in the next draft, and there was this another generational player that was in that draft. So whoever got number 1 was going to get that player. Who got the draft, or like the number 1 draft? The Mavs. So that was like, that was a deal that probably went under the table, that like, here, you'll trade this player, you'll get this player, and it'll be all good. Again, we don't know that, but it's like, that makes a whole lot more sense than what's going on. I mean, I guess I'll bring it, like, the Charlie Kirk assassination. Like, could it be the story that told? Yeah, it's fine. I think that's possible. I think the only thing with it is that Tyler Robinson doesn't have a really good motive. And it's like, wow, like, if you kind of think about it, it's like, man, I think you would really have to have a motive to kill somebody. Like, I mean, it's like, all right, I'm probably going to end, dead or in jail for the rest of my life. Like, it's got to be somebody important. And it just seems like the stuff they get, it's like, yeah, he just didn't like his trans stance, like kind of, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of people I disagree with or whatever. And it's also too, that I kind of find fascinating. It's like throughout history, it seemed like a lot of people got poisoned or stabbed in the back or all this stuff. But nowadays, like, that doesn't happen. It just seems like, oh yeah, this crazy guy just killed, like where it's like, I find that kind of fascinating. It's like, I can't prove anything, but again, once you kind of think about these things. But again, people kind of go off in these crazy things there. But back to Peter Thiel. So we know, like, it just got found out with Dialogue. I was kind of mad because I knew about Dialogue through other sources. So I was like, I could reveal, and then it's like, okay, the time I give this speech, like the numbers list. But like, everybody's downplaying it. Like Sam Harris was like, yeah, we, paid $5,000 to go to this line. And he gave us these, things to fill out or whatever. He kind of like brushed it off, but I'm just like, wow, you just paid $5,000 to go hang out, maybe, but is there something more with this? And it's like, Thiel's, again, is Thiel planning things, or is people want us to think that Thiel's planning things? I think both are possible. You have to kind of keep both those options. Don't go crazy. It's like, oh my God, Peter Thiel's going to do all this stuff, and like he's his parents were Nazis and all this. Like, you can't go off that unless you find more stuff. Peter Thiel's like, he was born in Germany, but then his like parents moved to like South Africa. Like, he kind of moved around, his dad was a chemist. Maybe there was like other jobs, but like, I was just kind of just going through the Wikipedia thing. And that's why I have this text where it makes me like, when I see like things like that, it does kind of raise a flag where with financial support from friends and family was raised $1 million to establish Thiel's capital management. It's like, wow, that's interesting that, enough people. And he's like fairly young at this time too. I think I may be in his 20s, where it's just like, oh yeah, you're a bright kid. Let me give you $250,000. Like, I find that a little weird, and again, like his family's not supposed to be rich, but yet they know people that can give him $1 million. I find that interesting. Like, where it's, do I know that, it'd be interesting to find who these friends are and how you meet, like, it's again where I just find that fascinating. So and again, like, Peter Thiel's like big on this transhumanism. Like, it's weird. Like, again, that reporter asked him, like, what do you think about humanity? And he kind of like, you brush her off or whatever, that like, it's like, is he planning something? And I just threw this in here. I don't think it's ever been associated. It was like eugenics 2.0. Like that's coming at some point where that, people are going to try, and this always happens. Like, there was a Russian scientist, I think, I didn't look at what his name and stuff, but he wanted to mate a human with a gorilla, that he thought he could make this like gorilla army. like there where it sounds silly and stupid and wouldn't work, but there's people out there that's like, oh yeah, we can make this super army or whatever, that like there's people out there, but like, yeah, people are like, eugenics, the way it was originally, again, going back to class, it's like, we're this good stock of whatever. I'm not even sure if they knew what DNA was at that moment in time, but there's this lower class, we got to stop them breeding and stuff. So this new like 2.0 stuff where it's going to be like like we're going to get these perfect genes and stuff. And, it may also too like Neuralink and all this other stuff where like, it's like somebody's like, we're going to make the perfect human. But again, we don't know what perfection is, and I think they're going to screw it up. So like and also Teal's connected to this is that, a lot of these tech people, I think there's two sides of this. Like, I think there's a lot of tech people that like, oh, we can make this AI God. That like, we're going to get all these data centers. We're going to make all these things. We'll make this as super intelligence. We'll use spying software. It's like, God, what was the company from Terminator? Skynet. Like there where, there's this thing that like they have this super dream that they can think they can figure all this stuff out. But I think there's another part of this too, is that they know they can't do that, but they're bullshitting people to think that they can. So that's another way to take about it. Like it's starting to, like again, I go back to Diary of CEO. Like he was interviewing, unfortunately I'm forgetting her name, that wrote Empire of AI. And she kind of went through where she knows these people, she knows this stuff doesn't work right, all this stuff. And I forget what's his name of the Diary of CEO, that he's like, oh no, I use AI. I have this smart 25-year-old that's writing these, agents for me that are figuring all this stuff out. And she kind of looks at him. She's like, right. She's like, she knows he's like BS. And it's kind of like, again, I know that you know that I know. So she's kind of like for the rest of the interview, she's just kind of like, yeah. Like stuff like that. And I think he kind of realizes that it's like, oh, she knows I'm bullshitting. Like stuff where she actually knows this stuff. And he can't get away saying that stuff. So it's kind of like it gets awkward at the end of the interview. And there was actually some guy that she challenged that like, listen, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. And then that guy actually calls during the interview that he'd like to defend himself, kind of thing. So it's very like, oh man, the AI is like another whole big thing where like Sam Altman, like pretty much people are realizing that he's a sociopath and he can't deliver on the things that he's saying. And it's like, he doesn't know, like, again, he's playing this game where he's hyping this stuff up and he's like saying it's super dangerous, yet he's still trying to do it, kind of things. And so that's starting, like some people realized early, like a lot of people that started OpenAI kind of, the guy ahead of Anthropic, I'm forgetting his name. He was one of those people, and then he split off to do his own thing. But he's now saying the same BS that Sam Altman was saying. So, okay, so this is, I think, the most concerning, and we'll go into it. So, I think, oh God, where to start? I think there's going to be a battle of messiahs, and like that may seem crazy, but let me go through my thinking about this. So this is very high speculative, and who knows? I think there's so many steps that play out. We'll see how it goes. So, like Israel, I think probably people are we're kind of heads up on Israel. And it's like, I think we know, unless somebody says differently, that like they're trying to expand their borders. They're trying to make like Pax Judea. Like they're trying to get rid of Lebanon and things. And I should have put the same map that you did. I forgot to put that in there. Where like, so there's, that's why they want to attack Iran. There's two theory. I think there's two good theories why we're attacking Iran. Is one, I mean, Trump, also I'm following a guy that he's like, he's a doctorate in certain, like taking care of the elderly. I forget what his credentials are, but he's like, listen, Trump has dementia. Like, here's the signs, here's all this stuff that like, he's getting it worse, kind of thing. There was like even a meeting that happened recently that Trump couldn't remember the word video or footage. And he just said like camera things and pictures. And then he looked at a camera and he's like, oh, camera. Like he's like getting that bad. Like, There was someone too where he just started rambling in a meeting or like something like that. Like I think it's definitely starting to show. And probably everybody also turned the Lindsey Graham's, like the guy sitting next to him, also just like gags because he probably like his diaper probably filled up. So anyway, but as I relate this to Israel, that like Trump either has like he still thinks that like, hey, I got to do something to China and like cut off their oil supply. So that could be the reason why he's attacking Iran. The other thing is the eschatological reason is that he's bought into the Israel plan where they want to get rid of Iran, expand their borders, create this Pax Judea. So when that happens, and it may even if this one thing is that if Dome on the Rock, which is this very holy place that for Islam, that is supposed to, I think is when Muhammad ascended to heaven, is built basically where the temple's supposed to go. And if they do something to destroy that, it's like, oh, they're going. Like they're where, like they're going to make it happen. They feel confident enough to destroy that and build a temple. Side note, I was watching something where like the Wailing Wall may be the wall of something that was next door. It may not even actually be the temple, which is kind of funny too, where the irony. But if that holy place gets destroyed, like that's what this plan is, to rebuild the temple. Now, I say Jesus too, because Christian nationalists and stuff are believing this Judeo-Christian BS they've been fed like the last 50 years, where they think, this is so funny, they think they can fool God and get the temple built and Jesus will come back. Like they're where instead of like, hey, God has it all figured out, Jesus will come on his own time, they're thinking, hey, if we can get the temple rebuilt, Jesus is going to come back. You know, and it's like that's the arrogance of these people. And so why I call it Battle of the Messiah is because it's like, if this happens, there's all these religious groups that are going to create like, oh no, this guy floated from heaven and came here. Like I've got video of it. And like there'll be, I kind of wonder if these groups have like contacted like magicians to kind of like, hey, because you got to fool people. Again, you have to build that Plato's cave. You have to get like people to like, oh, this guy is the real Jesus. So they're going to have to do something remarkable to like get people to believe. So I think I have like, again, it's all speculation. It could be, you know, there where, oh God, I was watching, man, there's this deep parts of YouTube. Like, so there's a movement in Christianity called Millennium Dispensationalists. I'm probably saying it completely wrong. That I should have wrote. Yeah, thank you. That it is this belief. It's like, you know, if you were like the Left Behind series, it's this whole Christian thought that's not even in the Bible. There was a guy named John Nelson Darby that made up the whole thing, but yet it's reprogrammed their brain and they believe that like, oh, this, you know, we're all going to, you know, once Jesus comes back, we're all going to go, you know, float up to heaven, which doesn't even make sense now because early Christians thought heaven was in the sky. It was like, you know, like the Tower of Babel or Jacob's Ladder or what, if you could build a tall enough structure, you could get into heaven. But it was like, that's why, like, again, the belief of like, oh, people will raise and like go into heaven, but now we know that heaven isn't there, so some of this stuff doesn't make sense. But again, the programming is too strong that it's like, oh, okay, heaven is some alternate dimension or something that like there. But people, again, this Left Behind series is still like floating up. But there's a couple of those guys, like Huckabee, the ambassador to Israel, is one of them. Like there were, oh man, I was watching. So did I put her down? So there's a name associated, which was really famous with the Charlie Kirk, where there was, God, Laura Moore Cordova, I think is her name. She's the one that threatened. She's the one that sent those text messages to Charlie Kirk and threatened him. And then there was also she created a video of like, hey, you know, like yelling at Charlie, and just threatening him and stuff like that. She has been completely like wiped. Like nothing has been seen on her social media for about 8 or 9 months. like once that event happened, that she's completely gone. But she's another one of these dispensationalists that, so like there's there. And I put, so one of the things to like, if you were ever going to rebuild the temple, you have to, make it holy land. And so it's like, you have to find this perfect red heifer. And there was a guy in Texas that gave him 5, what he believed to be perfect heifers. And supposedly they've sacrificed those heifers already. So like there, and it, so there was an article and stuff like talking about it. So I originally was getting high speculating that I think the Mormons are doing also this weird thing where they're collecting DNA from everybody. Like anything like Ancestry.com and stuff, that is all Mormon companies. And they're keeping track of everybody's DNA. They're very obsessed with lineage. And like I think that their way to build their perfect Jesus is to find the perfect DNA and like, oh, you're the Messiah. So like that I think that possibly the Mormons are, influencing these Christian Zionists that could be there. Now it could be other groups, it could be separate. Like there again, we're having fun time speculating. But it's like again, so and also too with this religion thing is very important. So I didn't create a slide about this, is that it could be endgame. Like our system has reached as far as it can go. There's like cycles through society. I should have done something. There's a Greek philosopher called Polybius that found out, like when he lived in Athens, that Athens went through all these cycles through, oligarchies and democracy and dictatorships and all these things where it was just he had already seen the cycles. And people like maybe looking, it's like, oh, our cycle is done. That like America's $40 trillion in debt. Its leaders are crapping their pants and, we don't know if Mitch McConnell's still alive. There's a lot of stuff where it's like, is this empire weakening? There needs to be another empire or another form of thought. And like a lot of people go into religion. It's like, oh, we can, as things fall apart, could we sell them? Could we reprogram their brains? Grab this back. And okay, like here, like, it could be the Catholics. Like, again, like I was talking about that symbol. Like, it's kind of funny. I kind of felt like a lot of people has written them off or don't bring them up. And it's like, listen, they have their own city that is walled and guarded by Swiss guards, by the way, which, like, it's a funny story where they just like, oh, yeah, we really like the Pope and we're going to give him these guards and pay for this, military or whatever, which I find, again, weird. Like there where it's like, why are you keeping there? And also too, like they have this secret library. They could have the secrets of like early Christianity, how it developed, or all these other things, books that we've lost throughout the history, and they're not telling anybody about it. Like there where, it could be, you can kind of almost think about it as a bunker. And then they, if you look online, like, oh, we think they're worth like $75 billion. It's like, it may be incalculable. So it's like the Vatican City is like the queen on the chessboard, kind of things where it's like you would have such power. Now, I didn't write this on the slide, and I should have done. So we were talking about Plato's cave, but it's like you can have a Plato's cave inside of Plato's cave, where you think you escape and you're in the real world and look at the universe, but yet you're being fooled again because that is also a cave as well. So you really have to quite think about these things. So yes, I would like to hear that, the Vatican City is this big thing, but there's also secret societies that have also infiltrated the Vatican City. So there's like Opus Dei, the Jesuits, there's all these groups. They just kicked out SSPX, if you know what that is. Like and they have this very, like this system of like, it's like popes can or should be the only people that promote bishops, or cardinals. But then cardinals are the only people that vote for the Pope. So it's like, oh, we'll set up the people that we want as cardinals. Then when the next Pope comes along, these cardinals are gonna vote for the right people. So I think they're very, they want to like throw out, make sure that they have the right people and stuff in there. Like I'm sure they've had problems throughout the years of secret societies infiltrating their system, and like they have to do it. I always thought too, when the new the previous Pope was from Argentina, I always thought like, oh, all the popes are going to be from South America. That seems where like most Catholics are concentrated at. But then we get a U.S. one, and it's like, oh, I bet there's groups that are colluding that they pick their popes, like again, they do have this agreement that to keep the peace or whatever, that they made this cycle through popes. I kind of wonder about that. But then it's also too, I've mentioned stuff are they going to get into the Messiah game? So it's they're where would they want to create their own jihad? I kind of feel like Catholics or their system, they don't want it. Hey, this is good as the way it is. People I kind of think they kind of made up Jesus. That's a whole other discussion. But they're where they may want to keep the status quo, or they may get into this, or they're, so it's kind of watch this stuff. Again, they're willing to be successful. Chances are no. There's all these societies, these secret societies, they're throughout history, and they fail. They fail almost all the time. What you need though is the right timing. Is that right timing coming? That's the thing to kind of be worried about, where a new system can come to be. And we'll have to kind of watch, but you kind of again, you got to think of these concepts and what's going on and why people are telling you things. I'm getting a lot of anti-Israel stuff in my Instagram thing. Do they think that's popular because I'm going to watch it, or do they want me to be anti-Israel? I don't know. Kind of stuff you have to kind of ask your questions, why am I getting a whole bunch of vampire stuff on my feed today? Why is this person trying to influence me? Kind of things where you have to kind of think about that stuff, because people are trying to build that Plato's cave in your head. So I wanted to end with any ritual and ceremony to conclude our meeting of the striped socks. I have brought your new God, and let's see if this works. There we go. Behold, 2 men. There we go. That's my speech. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's do some questions, and if you want to turn that off, it's really loud. Any questions? Actually, I'm going to do the first question.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Because how dare you? Charlie Kirk, the only problem is that there was no motivation. Yeah, how dare you, sir?
Yeah, no, be fair. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't add up. The gun.
There's 1,000 different problems.
Yeah.
With Charlie Kirk, the motivation being just one of them.
Yes, you're being fair. To me, the motive is the thing that alarms me. Where Oswald, they have no official motive and stuff, and it's wow, to kill a president. You think he would have pictures of his eyes cut out at his house, and all his friends. It was oh, he just was obsessing about JFK. He wouldn't stop. There's none of that. There's none. They're where. So I always find that the biggest one. But you're totally right. That. I'm kind of worrying how the trial's going to go. Yeah.
So, man, I'm shocked you didn't mention Scientology.
Scientology is
what's
another.
What's up with that?
Yeah, I know. There's a lot of stuff. I was hoping questions would bring it up. Thank you. Yeah, Scientology is another one where, its whole story, it may have been a bet between science fiction writers who could create a religion, and then it did, and it has all this money. The one thing I kind of leave out a little bit about it is that. That I don't know who that next lead. I mean, Maravich is not too old. Is that his name? But it's something that, is he satisfied with hey, I can just get all this money from actors and that's enough. So, but yeah, it's definitely a force out there. So
what about Skull and Bones?
So I did not create a slide of this. So I was kind of looking into it, how effective Skull and Bones is really there where in Yale. And it's there's I think there's 20 some secret societies in Yale, and they produced Skull and Bones, I think, has produced 3 presidents, 2 Bushes, and then the third one is Taft, wasn't it? That, and also of congressmen, that Yale has produced 500 congressmen and only 40 from Skull and Bones. I think it's a powerful thing. I don't think they're ideological, hey, we have this vision there. I think it's more of a power thing. Hey, when you get into these certain situations, you're going to hire other Skull and Bones people to get in there. So I'm kind of curious if there's any ideological thing with them. But yeah, it's another group. Again, I was showing the ritual for the fraternities that I'm sure there is like I've heard the rooms and stuff like I think is there 2 or 3 rooms and it's ritual or whatever. So, but again, it's technically a secret society or this there, but it's again. Same with Bohemian Grove. I should bring that up too. Like they're like, oh yeah, all these people have gone there. They're all kind of old. Where I kind of wonder if it's time. Like again, I think there's like for these societies, I think they only last for like a little bit, like 40 years or something, and they kind of fade out. So.
Yes, excellent. So to actually dovetail in from what you just said, I think that a lot of people and a lot of like just society in general, culture in general, has this idea of secret societies and this concept of these names that we must not speak or whatever, whether it is Bohemian Grove, Skull and Bones, whatever. But at the end of the day, I think it does come down to like the entomology of like the human nature of the primal brain and control and like you said, narcissism. Yep. But there's a larger thing. I don't know if you're familiar with like the fourth turning, but like the fourth turning is this every 80-year cycle that there is this large, whether it's social, national, or global transition of power in this ebb and flow. I do believe that some of these secret societies do use like astrology and numerology, sacred, this kind of thought. So like your thoughts on those? Yeah,
I didn't put it. There's like this whole like it could have been another like Michael A. Aquino. Temple of Set, the Church of Satan, was it Avril? God, I remember the head of the Church of Satan. Yeah, like so I was going to do this whole thing on how power is defined. I think the ultimate people that have power are families because it can transition, like where there's good incentive for you not to betray your family because you're not going to be part of it. You're probably going to get your funds cut. There's a lot, they may get rid of you, if you watch Godfather Part 2, like kind of things that there's a lot of stuff to do it. And there's like going with your numerology and stuff. There is kind of this whole religious part of it. Like if you truly think like God's in charge, where it's like, all right, we need to find another powerful being. They're not going to be as powerful God, but we should align with these powerful beings so we can take over God. So, there's a lot of people, worship Saturn. There is like Baal. I think some of this stuff, like, again, is like a little kind of, made up. But it's like also too, like once you kind of understand these things, like, like they're not too deep. Like, the church, Satan is the adversary. Like they're that in the Bible that he's not what we think is Satan, kind of that was further Christianity thoughts. But again, these people are building it in your brain that like, oh God, that these evil things are contacting, the most evil being out there, kind of thing. So I totally think they're doing it, but I think that's part of the ritual and stuff where that's their thinking. Like, again, I don't think magic's real.
Can I just push back?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, like as far as like, Moloch and like Baal,
these
are like Canaanite, like beliefs of like thousands of years.
Well, actually, they think so. There's the new kind of setting is actually Baal may be a title, like where like there's kind of he may have actually been other gods. So like that's some of the stuff that's new coming out. Also, Molech may have been like a process. It's not like, oh, we're not killing these babies for Molech. It's like it may have been called Molech. But yeah, there's like things. But again, that's what people, we're doing. So yeah.
What role do you think intelligence agencies, like government intelligence agencies?
I forgot to create this idea. So I think the CIA, like again, it's like the Catholic Church. I was kind of looking at this as like, does it have its own secret society? Does it have, it can't. Like again, I think there's certain secret societies that have come into the CIA and doing things. I don't know what those groups are. I was like trying to find if anybody had like, is it these powerful families that put their people in? Is it like the Epstein thing where it's like we find out who works at the CIA and we compromise them? Like I think there's like a lot of this stuff. But yeah, like the CIA isn't. And I didn't list a book. There was a book called from David Talbot called was it the Satan's Chessboard or something like where he talks about Alan Dulles, where that was like some of the guy, like there's a whole big thing about Alan Dulles that it could have been like, again, I kind of didn't talk about it because it's like, does he represent a bigger group or is he just by himself? He may have there, but like that, like he did some horrible things. So, but yeah, it's like, I think there's other groups in there. We just don't know what they are.
So a lot of what you said seemed to be derisive upon religion as a whole for every single religion. And I kind of feel like the narcissism that leads somebody to believe they can control a populace or control other people in general is almost the opposite of that. That religion is believing there's something better and bigger than you. So I'd love you to explain that a little bit.
Yeah, I just think that's like one of the biggest things. Like when you're trying to look at the universe, they're defining it for you. Like you're looking through the universe through like what they've told you it is. Now, like this is something too where I'm going to do some more research in this. But again, like the United States was founded on the Age of Enlightenment. So like again, you could even look at that money. Like they had a dollar bill that was like had some Greek, like a picture looked like from Greece. Like these guys, like they weren't atheists. They were like deists, but they believed in like things like finding the universe, finding, like it's like our ingenuity, our ways to visibly, if we connect with the universe, could find what it is. And religion is not that. Like, it's like we have this sacred text that was written by who knows whatever, and this tells you like what it is. Like they're putting, between you and the universe was like pharaohs and gods, and then that got consolidated to one God. And then like there was that one God, but then somebody came along. It's like, yeah, there's this God, but there's this other guy named Jesus. And we're going to put that between you and God. Like that's the only thing. Like these other religions that come along, they don't destroy the power structure that's already there. Oh, you believe in God and believe in Jesus? We'll put this other guy between you and Jesus. It's like Happy Science is that. If you've ever checked, I forget what their God is. I think they actually made the founder of the religion the God. But it's like, yes, Buddha and Jesus are all real, but there's a new story. That's me. And in Book of Mormon's the same way. Yes, everything's true about Jesus and stuff, but hey, they didn't tell you the other story. Like he came to the Americas and, hung out with the natives and what I haven't read the Book of Mormon. But yeah.
I have a tendency to believe that there's a part of divinity that you've missed on this. And I think that the gods that you were thinking about are they're trying to follow a pattern. They're trying to follow a pattern that has already been lived by other divinities out there, and they're trying to follow that.
Like again, like it's some of the stuff where you have to kind of ground yourself. Like, can we observe and measure this stuff? Where like you can get definitely a point. It's like there could be a God. He's unseen and like there and keep hidden. There's like one of the arguments, but I would definitely like ask yourself questions like, okay, if this, like what you said is true, would you see these certain things? Would you see certain signs like there? So like, again, there's like a lot of people like, what was Cooper? Was it the, like their writer of the Pale Horse book? Yeah. That, he had all this like ideas, but then he was like a devout Christian. So like to me, it's like you have to connect yourself with the universe. You have to get rid of all those Plato caves in your head. You have to deprogram completely to understand what's going on. But that's the way I look at it. Yeah.
Do you think those serious questions?
Yeah, sure.
Do you think these secret societies start like with a psychopath who just needs some efficient way to aggregate and get a bunch of people to just follow him and do his bidding?
Yes. So I forgot to put a slide on this, that the secret of like what civilization like could be the secret why we fail and go through these cycles is people with dark triad of traits. So it is narcissism. I always forget what three of them are. That it is psychopathy and Machiavellianism. Is that once you get those three people and they get in charge of something, look out. Like that's when bad stuff happens. So you're exactly right. It's those people with those three traits decide to like look at those scam board and it's like, oh man, I can do X. That's when bad stuff happens. So I totally think it's that way. And again, they may be motivated like I'm this special person, again, feeding that narcissism. But again, I do think it evolves like I'm going to have sex with a lot of women. So it just seems like that always plays out.
Last question.
Sure.
I don't know if you addressed the pink striped socks.
Oh.
Yes.
but you're wearing them.
Yeah.
And that was the title. So what are they?
So, and I guess I thought like more people there, but maybe that's my bad. Like they're called programming. There was like this, again, it was like this cultural thing that people started doing where some programmer posted, it's like, I'm just coding in like my socks or whatever. And like a lot of programmers were like asking, it's like, wait a minute, do we all have to wear these? Like what? Like they're, so like, I think a lot of like secret societies have like weird names and things. And that was like the first thing that came to my mind. Like there where it could have been anything, but I felt like that was something that was going to connect and be something. So I was kind of seeing if anybody would wear them, and the answer is no.
That's our talk. Give it up for Tom.